As a successful influencer in the world of social media, my career had afforded me fame, fortune, and a loyal following. However, everything changed when I discovered that my main competitor, Karen influencer, doxed me and gets arrested. Here's how it all went down. The day began with the usual buzz of content creation, a routine that had become second nature to me as I navigated the world of social media influence. My career had flourished, providing me with a substantial following, a steady income to afford my own place, and the means to support my family. With my morning coffee in hand, I was ready to engage with my community, share my latest work, and continue to build my online presence. However, today was destined to be anything but ordinary. As I scrolled through my social media feed, I was met with a sight that sent chills down my spine. My face, alongside my personal information, was displayed for the entire internet to see. I had been doxxed. My privacy, something I had worked tirelessly to protect, was now in jeopardy. The comments section was a whirlwind of reactions, with thousands expressing their shock, anger, and support. Amidst the chaos, one name was consistently mentioned: Karen. Karen, a fellow influencer, was my main competitor in the content creation world. We were constantly battling for the same brand endorsements, the same audience, and the same level of influence. Our rivalry was well known, and the competition was intense. I was in shock, but I couldn't ignore the facts. Just a week prior, Karen and I had a public disagreement over a lucrative brand deal. I had secured the deal, and Karen was livid. She accused me of stealing the opportunity from her, and our exchange was heated. Now, seeing my personal information laid bare, I couldn't help but connect the dots. It had to be Karen. Fueled by a mix of anger and determination, I decided to take action. "Karen," I texted, my fingers flying over the keyboard. "Did you do this? Why would you expose my personal information like this?" Her response was immediate and chilling. "You took what was rightfully mine. You should have seen this coming." I was appalled. "Karen, this goes beyond our professional rivalry. You've endangered me and my family. This is illegal and morally reprehensible." But Karen was unyielding. "I did what I had to do," she replied, her words cold and devoid of remorse. As the day wore on, the posts spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of the influencer community and beyond. They rallied behind me, condemning Karen's actions and calling for justice. The post was reported en masse, and there was a collective call for it to be taken down. But the damage was done. Due to the exposure of my personal information, I started receiving threatening messages. Strangers knew where I lived, and even my family was affected, their sense of security shattered. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I decided to file a case against Karen, armed with substantial evidence of her malicious act. By evening, the situation escalated. She was arrested, her actions finally catching up to her. In the aftermath of her arrest, the influencer community breathed a sigh of relief. The post was removed, and Karen was held accountable for her actions. It was a painful ordeal, but it served as a powerful reminder of the responsibility that comes with influence, and the strength found in standing up for justice. As I reflect on that day, I am reminded of the importance of protecting one's privacy, the resilience required to overcome adversity, and the strength of a community that stands united against wrongdoing. My privacy was violated, my safety compromised, but in the end, justice was served, and the influencer community stood stronger and more vigilant than ever before. Wow, that's insane! Can't believe Karen would stoop so low. It's a good reminder to always protect our privacy online. Stay safe, everyone. I never expected that moving to Seattle for my dream job would lead to such a nightmarish turn of events. Little did I know, my seemingly perfect roommate, Kate, had a sinister plan to make me suffer. The truth unraveled when mysterious symptoms struck me, but nothing could prepare me for the shocking revelation that would change my life forever. Here's how it all went down. I am a 25-year-old female, and I live in Seattle. I just moved here a few months ago from New York City because of my dream job, and I was so excited. I work as a data analyst, and I make a very comfortable living. It felt like my life was finally all starting to fall into place. The only thing I needed was a place to live. I turned to Facebook because I thought that might be the best place to find a roommate. I found this girl, let's call her Kate, 26 years old, and she seemed perfect. She said that she and her boyfriend, 29 years old, were in a 2-bedroom apartment that was very spacious, in a great location, and were looking for someone to rent the room. She said she was a 7th grade English teacher, and her boyfriend was a physical therapist. All her interests and hobbies seemed to align perfectly with mine, so I agreed to live with them. I moved in 1 month after initially finding each other, and everything started off great. Kate and I were friendly and had good conversations when we would interact. One day, however, I get home and she seemed to be in a very bad mood. I asked her about it, and she ignored me and walked into her room. I didn't think anything of it, but then I received a text from her that read, "I know you want to hook up with my boyfriend," and that's all she wrote. I was very confused because that was completely untrue. I have been cheated on in the past and know how devastating it is, so I would never want to inflict that pain onto someone else. There were more texts exchanged, and everything seemed to be good. But when I saw her in person, she continued to act weird, but I brushed it off. The next day, however, she began to act very nice and sweet, even offering me a smoothie because she knew I was too busy in the mornings to make breakfast. I accepted and went about my day. The smoothies continued every morning, and I just thought she was being nice. Now, I am experiencing some symptoms, and I'm a bit scared. My hair has started to fall out, and my hormones have been all over the place. I have developed some weird stomach issues, and I get headaches all the time now. This is all new to me. It may be that the move and all this change is affecting my health, but it does seem to have started around when the smoothies did. I don't know how to catch her and see if I'm right, and I don't want to seem rude and stop accepting the smoothies if I'm wrong. I don't know what to do. I need some advice. I took the advice to go to the hospital and did just that. I went to the hospital and brought along the smoothie. They told me that they were unable to test the smoothie at this time, but they did give me a blood test as everything would still show up there. This would also indicate what is happening in my body and why I might be experiencing these symptoms. To make a long story short, it turns out my roommate was adding some sort of creatine or protein powder to the smoothies because she wanted me to gain weight, so I would no longer be attractive to her boyfriend. I told her about what happened at the hospital, and she told me everything. That is what was causing my headaches, stomach issues, and potentially the hair loss, because apparently I'm allergic to it. So, technically, she was not poisoning me, just trying to make me gain weight. However, this is not the traumatic part. While the doctors were giving me all the blood tests, they found that I have leukemia. This news has been hard for me to deal with. Now, because of my new circumstances, I will be moving back home to be with my family as I go through treatment. No, this was not at all how I expected things to turn out. But maybe in a way it's a good thing. I'm not really sure, but I know I am going to be okay in the end. It is fortunate that she did not poison you, but the unexpected revelation of having leukemia is indeed a challenging twist. Stay resilient and strong during this difficult time. I've always had a backup plan, but he sees it as a threat to our future together. As tensions rise and emotions run high, we must confront our fears and navigate the rocky path of trust and commitment. Here's how it all went down. I have always had a backup plan. My backup plan includes a place to live, money for general expenses, and a rainy day fund. It's more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. I like having it, and I've explained to previous partners that I have one and let them decide if they're okay with it. I could feel my frustration rising. That's not fair. This isn't about me wanting to leave. It's about me wanting to protect myself. You come from a wealthy family and the prenup protects you too. Why shouldn't I have the same protection? He looked down, avoiding my gaze. I love you, and it hurts to think that we're planning for a future where we might not be together. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I love you too, but love isn't the issue here. This is about being practical and realistic. Life is unpredictable, and I need to know that I'll be okay no matter what happens. He finally met my eyes, his own filled with a mix of emotions. I just need some time to think about this, okay? I didn't expect to feel this way, but I do, and I need you to understand that. I nodded, though the frustration still lingered. Fine, take your time, but understand that this is really important to me and it's not something I'm willing to compromise on. As he left the room, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. I had been so clear about my needs and expectations, and now it felt like he was questioning my commitment to our relationship. I knew we needed to sort this out, but at that moment, I just felt betrayed. The backup plan is complicated, but it doesn't screw him over in any way. It protects me, and I would be paying for the property and still contributing the same amount that he would be to our household expenses and savings. Now that he knows what the plan entails in depth, he wants to just not sign anything on both sides. This is a bad idea. I would be unprotected, but so would he, and he has way more than I do. He feels like I have one foot out the door. I don't. I love him, but my dad is a divorce lawyer, and from what I've heard and seen, it's better to protect yourself and not need it than have no protection and then have to pick up the pieces. Both of our parents agree that a prenuptial is needed. I'm not getting rid of this plan. There is not anything that would make me compromise about this. I told him he has a decision to make because I'm not changing my mind. I was honest with my fiancé from the start, and I felt like he had pulled the wool over my eyes. But I understand his perspective now, and he understands mine. It never crossed our minds to break up, and I think we both needed some time to think. To clarify some things about my backup plan, I called it that because I started it at 25. I have had it for about 10 years now. I'm in my mid-30s. It is an emergency savings account, another savings account, and a property I own. I use my main job to pay for my household expenses with my fiancé and also to fill my main savings. I have a trust, but also investments as well. But my dad helps me handle those. The emergency savings is only money from additional contract jobs I take on in my profession. The other savings account is only money from rental income, some of which I use to maintain the property and pay my dad back. The property is a multi-family home, and I rent out all the units but one. The property was bought by my dad when I was 24, and I have been paying him back the purchase price with no interest for a couple of years now. The property is worth a great amount now, but my dad would only accept what he paid for it from me. He took out a loan for me because he wanted me to be set up financially. I'm paying him back, even though he already paid the loan off a long time ago. There's no way I would be able to buy that property now, or even 5 years ago since house prices have skyrocketed where I live, and I'm grateful that my dad did that for me. I will finally pay off the loan in about 8 months and before I get married. It's taken me so long to pay my dad back because he insisted that I prioritize setting myself up financially rather than paying him back. The property is also a 15-minute walk to the nearest hospital and close to the city center, making it easy to rent out to medical students. I keep one unit open because of events. I make a significant profit when there are events or when big artists tour, such as the recent Beyoncé and Taylor Swift tours where I made a lot of money on the days they were in my city. If there are no events where I think I can make a good amount, I rent it out to travel nurses for 3-4 month periods once or twice a year. Realistically, there could be a couple of weeks or 2-3 continuous months during the year where it sits empty. Overall, I make a substantial income from this property. I can't take credit for this strategy because my dad is the one who helped me set up the apartments and manage it. My partner and I come from vastly different economic backgrounds. His family has generational wealth, and he can't remember a time they didn't. I grew up firmly middle class until my parents' divorce, and then it was a struggle for a while. His home life was relatively stable with a mom and dad. On the other hand, my dad tried his best, but my birth mom made my childhood tumultuous both emotionally and mentally. The difference in how we think about money became very noticeable when we were planning our wedding. We had been discussing what type of flowers we would like, and then I started talking about the budget and stated that I thought 30-40K was a good overall amount to pay for a wedding, an amount that we could easily afford. He thought I meant 30-40K for flowers, and he and his parents didn't budge at the amount and just said okay. I clarified what I meant, and I would never pay that amount for just flowers. When it comes to the plan, my fiancé knew about it as soon as we were exclusive. I don't agree with people saying I shouldn't have told him. To protect my assets in the prenuptial agreement, I had to. I also told him because I felt he deserved to know. As we got more serious, especially with marriage, I told him more after talking to my dad and finding out what was okay to say so that he understood the extent of the plan. The reason I kept saying the backup plan was complicated was due to the prenup my dad came up with. It is very long and protects me very well, and my fiancé was, in his view, not prepared for the extent of it. My dad and I went to this extent due to what he had seen people do in divorces, but also mainly due to his divorce that affected us both. It didn't help that I further joked that my dad tried to cover for any loopholes, including asking his associates to look over the document and revising it if one was found. What I saw as protection, my fiancé saw as me having an out since my dad went to such an extent. The short part of it is that my fiancé was insecure about it. He grew up with a dad as the breadwinner, and he was raised with this idea that he should be a provider, and my plan rattled him because it showed him that financially, I didn't really need him. He told me he didn't realize how much of himself he had tied into this provider role and felt extremely insecure because he didn't know what he now brought to the relationship. When he found out about the sometimes empty unit, he felt more uneasy because he, even though I have and will always have a job, wanted and planned to take care of me. His idea of scrapping both prenups was his way of trying to say that he trusted me and that I should trust him. If he was willing to go without a prenup knowing I could get a substantial amount of his assets, then it would show me that he would never try to hurt me financially or otherwise. I told him I saw it at the time as extremely manipulative due to him doing it before we met with the lawyers, and he apologized because he honestly just panicked. I explained the reasons I wanted a prenup. The first was because I was with him when his brother got a divorce, and to put it nicely, the brother's ex-wife financially got eviscerated. I'm not going to talk about their relationship, but financially, she just kept being taken back to court over and over until she said she couldn't afford a lawyer anymore. From the way his brother bragged about it, she wasn't left destitute, but she paid a significant amount in legal fees and left with a far smaller settlement. His family would have bankrupted her because they had the wealth to wait her out. They could have gone to court forever, and they had a prenup. His brother's divorce was never on his radar, as a reason why I was so persistent about the prenup. Basically, what I said was there was a disparity in wealth here, and I know he would never do this to me, but I would feel better protected with one. The second reason is that though my dad is a divorce lawyer and upper middle class now, he went through a pretty bad divorce with my birth mom, and I witnessed it for 3 years. My dad is first generation, married young, and had no prenup. What I saw from 9, 12 was my birth mom, I no longer consider her a parent, completely try to annihilate my dad, and she didn't care that her child's well-being was on the line. She didn't care what financial damage she did, even to herself, as long as my dad suffered. I'm talking wiping out savings, taking loans and maxing out credit cards, getting tickets and getting the car towed by parking in an incorrect place and leaving the car to accumulate fees. She called CPS, said my dad was a pedophile, and turned on me when I wouldn't back up her lies. And all of this financially devastated my dad for years during and after the divorce. We were struggling for years, and I think people don't realize how quickly you can go from stable, even upper class, to nearly homeless or homeless. People don't realize if you have never been in that position before, how an ugly divorce not only devastates people financially, but also socially and professionally. My dad lost clients and lost income, and it took many years to rebuild it back. We only survived because my grandmother, Dad's side, sold her home. I told my fiancé that I basically went from having a parent who showed me love for 9 years, to a person who hated me and decided to destroy 2 people, my dad and me, because a marriage ended. There was no way to stop her, and a prenup could have stopped a lot of the financial damage. I again told him I knew he wouldn't do this to me, but I needed him to understand where I was coming from. I know I should have been in therapy from age 9, but it's hard to pay for therapy when you're poor. It is the last priority over having a roof over your head and food and basic necessities. I did get into therapy when I was 19. My fiancé and I talked over several days, and anytime he had a question or needed clarification, I answered it. I didn't realize how much seeing the extensive prenup affected him, and he didn't realize why I was so insistent on it. Overall, he knows that though I love and trust him, that I have to protect myself, and he should too. He knows why I'm insistent on signing a prenup, but also knows that I'm choosing to be with him based on who he is as a person and not what he can provide for me. I now understand why he felt insecure, and I have tried to alleviate that, and I'm constantly reassuring him of the reasons I'm with him. I also asked him to come see the property and unit with me, and he was really excited about that. I told him that I don't plan on us breaking up ever, and I have a plan for leaving the assets to our future children. Finally, I really see how when it comes to people he loves, he leads with emotion while I'm more logical. So we both are going to try to be more mindful of that as we move forward. We both finally signed the prenups, and his only stipulation was to stop calling mine a backup plan and instead call it an "I'm never gonna need this" plan. We are good, and I'm glad this happened because it showed both of us that we need to work on our communication more outside of our counseling. We are going to keep planning our wedding, and I'm excited to begin this next part of our lives together. It appears that her concerns are influenced by past experiences of witnessing trauma, such as the situation involving her brother-in-law, her mother, and her father's profession. These experiences may have shaped her perspective and contributed to her desire for a prenuptial agreement. It is understandable that these experiences would add credibility to her concerns, and it is surprising that her fiancé did not take them into consideration given their impact on her upbringing. This is a long one and a very weird situation, but here we go. I, 28 years old female, have been seeing 2 people recently. I've been seeing C, 30 years old female for a little over 5 months and M, 29 years old male for almost 6 months. Both relationships are currently in a state of non-commitment, even though I have expressed feelings in both relationships and they have been reciprocated. However, I am naturally not a super commitment-focused person, and both of the people I am seeing have respected that a lot, so yeah, anyways. Both relationships have been great, and I'm incredibly happy with them, and since neither are committed to me, I've kind of just assumed that both C and M were likely seeing other people as well, even if we haven't talked about it. Well, about a week ago, C came over to my place to spend the night, which she does like once a week or every other week. She goes to take a shower and I start gathering laundry and grab her stuff to throw in with mine and take her phone out of her jeans. I glance at the screen and see a few texts from a contact called My Love. I was kinda surprised by this because while not talking to me about casual relationships is not something I would care about, the contact name made me think she had a more serious relationship going on, which I don't mind but would like to be informed about. So, okay, I did an admittedly jerk thing and read the text and then read a few more, and it became apparent that this was a really committed relationship, like, I love you. I'll be back home soon. Please remember to grab so-and-so from the grocery store. Stuff like that. The contact picture looked kind of familiar too, so I clicked on it to see better, and it ended up being a picture of M. I kind of flipped at this because this is kind of a ridiculous situation, and I left my apartment for some air. I came back like 30 minutes later, and C was waiting for me and confused where I'd been. She didn't see/hear me leave since she was still in the shower. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage before I spoke. Hey, I need to talk to you about something. I'm really sorry for looking at your phone. That was out of line. But I saw the text from M, and it's made me feel quite hurt that you didn't tell me about your more serious relationship, especially since you know how much I value transparency. She looked taken aback for a moment, her eyes widening as she realized what I was talking about. Slowly, her expression changed to one of guilt and sadness, and soon enough, she was crying. I'm so sorry, she began, her voice shaky. M is actually my husband. He doesn't know about us. I've been feeling so guilty because I love him, but I've also really grown to love you. I know it's wrong, and I feel so dirty for keeping everything a secret. Hearing her admit to being married was a shock, even though I had already suspected as much. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, but I knew I needed to stay calm and talk this through with her. I appreciate you being honest with me now, I said, my voice soft. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you, but I'm really upset that I've been put in this position without my knowledge. We spent the next few hours talking, crying, and sharing our feelings. It was a long, emotional conversation, and by the end of it, we were both exhausted. I still hadn't mentioned that I was also dating M, feeling that it was crucial to talk to him first before making any big decisions or revelations. As I left her place that night, my mind was racing. I was in a complicated situation, and I knew I needed to talk to M as soon as possible to figure out where we would go from here. I ended up inviting M to stay at my place a few nights later, and I confront him about the fact that I know he has a wife, made up something about my friends seeing them out together, and ask why he's kept this from me. His reaction was really similar. Guilt, not understanding why he's attracted to two people at once, saying he very deeply loves C and doesn't want to leave her but really loves me too, says he's confused and doesn't know what to do. I don't mention to him that I know C or that I'm dating her. I ended up meeting with my therapist the day after I submitted the ask to talk about normal therapy stuff, but also to get her take on this situation I'd found myself in. She said that involving myself in this situation more than I needed to was a bad idea, that I shouldn't try to talk things out and should likely just cut contact with both of them and not divulge info about the fact I had been dating both of them. This kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because I guess I felt like I would owe it to both of them to at least explain why I'm dipping from our relationships. Because even though there's not commitment necessarily, lots of feelings have been shared and reciprocated, and it wouldn't feel right to just walk away with no explanation. I also wasn't really wanting to break up with either of them, despite the fact that I'd started to grow kind of upset about being made into a mistress without knowing. I'm still giving them both grace for their mistakes, but can't deny that I've been feeling really hurt by the whole situation. I also ended up talking to a friend of mine who suggested that hosting a talk with both of them at my place would be a bad idea since if things went bad between them, I wouldn't be able to just leave, and I agreed after thinking about it. I really wasn't sure how to approach this because no option felt good or right, so I ended up taking a kind of clumsy route. The day after therapy, I invited C over to my place to talk because she tends to be the more level-headed and less emotional of the two of them, and I thought it would be easier to explain to her first. I admitted to her that I knew M and that I had actually been seeing him for a little longer than I'd been seeing her. I told her I hadn't known they were married or that they even knew each other until the day I confronted her about having a partner. She was pretty taken aback and upset that I hadn't said anything before. Fair. And I apologized and told her that I didn't know how to approach the situation without potentially ruining things for them, and that's why I waited to gather info and decide what to do. We talked for a long time about everything. I apologized for not telling her sooner. She apologized for involving me in a huge mess without my knowledge. Lots of apologies all around and emotional talk. She said she felt kind of betrayed by M, but also felt that she didn't have the right to feel that way considering everything. I then told her that I hadn't talked to M about this yet, and that I would leave the news up to her discretion since they're at a level of commitment I simply don't have with either of them. I offered to tell him myself, or to be there with her, or to keep myself out of it if that's what she preferred. She decided that she wanted to talk to M by herself, and would let me know how things went, and I agreed with this. She told me, "I love you," gave me a kiss, and off she went. That night at like 4 in the morning, I get texts from M. He says he and C have been up all night talking about the situation, and that he's upset with me for not divulging the fact that I had been dating both of them sooner, but that he understands why I was hesitant and doesn't blame me. He gives a long-winded apology for involving me in the whole situation, then says that he needs time to think about everything with C and that they want to work on their communication and their marriage. So he'd be taking space from our relationship for the time being. I text him back once I've woken up and apologize too, and tell him I understand. C texts me a similar thing about needing time and space. I tell her the same thing. I'm not like completely stupid. I knew this was going to be a really likely possibility, but it still hurts in a lot of ways. I feel kind of betrayed by both of them for making me a mistress without my knowledge. This is a messy situation, but it might be better for all of them to have space and sort their feelings out first. Taking time to reflect and communicate openly can help them understand their own emotions and make decisions that are best for everyone involved. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.